There was just a court ruling up there in Boston. 25 states had brought this, saying the government can fund SNAP. Will the government now have to fund it starting tomorrow?
Yeah, Katie. So that's the question. And we are just getting this ruling, but it doesn't fully answer it yet. It's not the full temporary restraining order that she seemed inclined to order yesterday, but it is a step in that right direction. So basically what the judge is saying here is that USDA does have the authority to issue these SNAP benefits during the shutdown.
All right. I'm going to stop her right there. What she just said, in essence, the judgment said this. So the judge is declaring that you do have the legal authority to break the law. That's exactly what this judge has said. And I'm going to prove it to you in a second, but right now we have two judges who have come out and said, please break the law. These arsonists known as the Democrats, they started a fire and they've asked us to put it out. That's how bad it is with this Democrat Party. They lit this entire thing on fire. They knew they were going to torch it. And then they ran to a couple crazy judges to bail them out and try to make them look good to the people. It's insane. Absolutely insane.
The federal government had been arguing yesterday in court that they are not only prohibited from issuing these benefits, but that it would be logistically catastrophic to figure out how to even do this in a reduced way. So she's saying, you have this authority and you have to issue these benefits. Now, what she's not fully ordering, she's just stopping short of that.
So she didn't do anything. That's exactly what she did. She didn't order anything. She's like, you should do this, you could do this, and please come back to me with a plan how you're going to distribute the shortfall that you guys are sitting on. You see, they only have enough cash for like half of the money to pay SNAP. The judge is like, well, you figure it out how you're going to divvy it up. But in order to divvy it up, you're going to have to break the law. This thing, if it were to go to a appellate court or a Supreme Court, would be tossed out on its butt. But they don't care. The idea here is to make President Trump look like the bad guy. Are you going to now go to court and fight what this judge said just so you can screw the Democrats? That's how they will paint it. They know they've painted themselves into a corner, and they found these whacked out judges to go ahead and basically punt. We'll figure out who's going to get paid. The funniest thing ever would be for President Trump and his people to give it to the red states. Oh, we figured out we're going to give this much to Tennessee and Alabama and Georgia and Florida and a little bit over here to Indiana and Idaho. Well, what about California and Nevada? Hey, we don't have that much. That would be the most awesome thing to do. But I don't know how they're going to do this. Who's going to pick and choose how much each? Basically, if there's 50% left, if there's only 50% of the funds just for November, if there's only 50% of the funds, I think the easiest way says everybody gets 50% of the benefit. That's the fair way. Hey, it's going to be easy. We got 50% of the money. We're going to divide that 50% across everybody, and you get half what's coming to you. What do you think's going to happen then? How do you think people are going to react? If you are on disability and you get food stamps, are you going to be okay with half? Seriously, I know there's some people in here who get food stamps. Now you're looking at the likelihood of getting half of what you normally get during Thanksgiving season. November 1st ain't going to happen. Whatever happens is going to be half that amount.
Giving them until Monday to come back to her and say how they're going to do it. Because even if they use these contingency funds, which were set aside by Congress for this purpose, it won't cover the full month of November for everybody. So she's telling them on Monday, I want you to get back to me with whether or not you're just going to use these contingency funds and issue reduced benefits for the month of November, or whether you're going to use these contingency funds plus some additional funds so that people can get their full benefits.
Oh, yeah. So now the judge is looking at the checkbook and says, go find some other money. Hey, wait, what are you talking about? This is all we got. This is it. Why don't you have any more? Because the government's closed. Go find some more money. That is so far and above any legal authority. Go find some money. Figure it out. What's your plan? Well, we'd had a plan. We had a plan to open a government. That was our plan. The other plan is to get rid of like half the people who are going to get these benefits. You know, the ones who ain't from here. I don't know what you want us to do, Your Honor. Matter of fact, I don't believe you have the authority to be telling us what to do. They don't. You're going to hear that.
Either way, though, even with this order right now, or this ruling that she gave us, these people will not be getting their benefits on Monday, on November 1st. There will very likely still be a lapse while they figure out exactly how this will all play out.
Good luck. How in the hell do you figure this out? And how long of a lapse? And the judge going to figure that out? Oh, you got to get it out by Wednesday. How? What mechanism do you as a judge tell our employees they need to do this and do that? You can't compel that. Trump and the administration could drag their feet for a month. There's literally nothing they could do. That's why the Democrats have put this in the realm of the press. There is nothing this judge can do. There's nothing the Democrats can do. It's all media. It's all media trying to paint the bad Republicans want to starve babies. There's no legal recourse here. And by the way, even if there was, who's going to enforce it? I mean, we are at a Jacksonian crossroads if I've ever seen one. What are you going to do? You control nothing, and you've made that known quite well. We don't control the House, the Senate, the White House. You don't control anything. How are you going to make this happen? How are you going to enforce this? With the media? That's it. That's it.
All right, so it'll be difficult for many millions of Americans who are not going to get that funding immediately if they do end up getting it at all.
So in terms of SNAP and whether or not the government can find the money to do it, the judge is Indira Talwani in Massachusetts who says it's likely illegal what they're doing, and she wants to know by Monday if they could pay for it. Here's what the New York Times reported on the SNAP court hearing yesterday. Entering the hearing, top officials in the Trump administration had acknowledged that they had billions of dollars left over across multiple federal accounts, including money in an emergency reserve specifically for SNAP. But lawyers for the Justice Department signal that the administration could not or would not use those funds despite the looming shortfall. Mm-hmm.
All right, so you just heard that. That was the argument. The judge didn't want to hear it. The judge basically stepped into a bear trap. See, the judge should have known when you start talking about budgetary and allocation procedures, those things are conducted by law. It's not like President Trump could just write a check. Okay, here's some money for... No, you can't do that. Money that's allocated for X or Y, you can't dip into that and do this and do other things. That's illegal. So this judge is advocating for illegality. We're slippery slope. Yeah, we're right there.
Explain that.
Well, one of the arguments apparently is that some of the reserve funds for SNAP are specifically for natural disasters. We know those are going to come, and they say we don't want to deplete that because we're going to need it at some point. But they also say, despite the fact that the Trump administration did allow SNAP to remain funded during the shutdown 2018 to 2019, they say things are different this time. Different funds have been expended. There are different laws they claim tie their hands, and that Congress has got to do something to make that money movable and fungible again. They say they just can't. But the judge did not sound like she's buying it. It sounds like this judge in Rhode Island today also does not buy it.
This judge in Rhode Island. Oh, by the way, this is the same judge who had previously ruled that Trump couldn't do this or couldn't do that and got smacked down. And he ended up doing whatever it was she stopped. I forget. There's so many times that these district court judges try to do things. This has been a planned operation. The Democrats know they've got nothing, so they've got these pigeonholed judges that they have decided they can go to, and they're going to rule whatever the Democrats want, whenever the Democrats want. And so it's merely a speed bump. What can we do to slow Trump down? So either Trump needs to play along and wait for the appellate procedure, or he needs to acquiesce. That's it. Oh, well, there is a third thing. Tell him to go pound sand. And then deal with the media stuff after that.
She was also saying kind of like, guys, it's the easiest thing in the world. I don't even know why we're having this conversation.
It is easy. Instead of trying to make the USDA jump through hoops and try to figure out where we're going to give the money, what percentage to who, how about you just order the Democrats to sign a continuing resolution? You're doing all these things extraneously trying to make President Trump do stuff, but the answer to it is, why don't you order that? They don't. Now listen, I think this next cut is Brooke, forget her last name. She's the USDA or the Agriculture Secretary. And this cut, I believe, is from Mike Johnson's press conference.
The fact that the Democrats are saying, but wait, USDA has money in their accounts. Why it is really their fault. I've seen it over and over and over from some of their leaders is absolute false. And it is a lie. We have been saying on October 10th, we sent messages out. On October 24th, we sent messages out. These benefits end on November 1st. Now, let me get down into a little bit of the details on that to better explain.
All right. So as I've said to you, when I gave my hurricane analogy, they knew this was going to happen. There was no secret. They've had advance warning. They've had basically 4 weeks. Hey, this is going to happen on November 1st, guys. And they did nothing. So I want you to pay real close attention as she and Mike Johnson, they outline the actual law behind all of this. The law that tells them specifically what they can and can't do. Pretty much you're not going to see this on CNN or most of the news channels, maybe not even on Fox, but they're going to tell you specifically what the letter of the law is. That's really important.
So there is a contingency fund at USDA, but that contingency fund, by the way, doesn't even cover, I think, half of the $9.2 billion that would be required for November SNAP, but it is only allowed to flow if the underlying program is funded. It's called a contingency fund. And by law, contingency fund can only flow when the underlying fund is flowing. So, for example, if today the Democrats say, oh, never mind, sorry, we'll open the government and SNAP flows, Hurricane Melissa or one of the hurricanes hits, that's the contingency fund that we would use to send more money into the vulnerable communities that are harmed by a specific event like a hurricane. But it is a contingency fund that can only flow if the underlying appropriation is approved. And listen, even if it could flow, it doesn't even cover half of the month of November. So here we are again in 2 weeks having the exact same conversation.
Now that's really important. All of this that's going on right now is going to happen again. They only have enough money anyway. Even if they agree and release it, it only covers half of November. And the other half is where Thanksgiving comes. And everyone's going to want to go and get their Thanksgiving food, and there's no money. So whatever happens in the next couple of days, we're watching a repeat. It's going to happen again unless something stops this. And it's going to happen again in December. So every 2 weeks, we're going to see this until the Democrats sign this doggone piece of paper. And she's telling you. So I'm not sure if you understand. I want to break that down. What she said is there is a contingency fund, but it's based upon this budget running out. You know, your family, you and your wife, you and your husband, you say, we've got a savings account as our reserve. Reserve. You understand the word reserve. It's a just in case account. It is a break glass account. Over here, this is our family operating account. This is our checking account. We only have a reserve because we have this, because every week or every month you take a little bit here and you put it in this. So that only exists because you have funds flowing. If you have no funds flowing, That's all you have. That means your lights, your television, your cable, whatever, your internet, all these other things aren't going to get paid. And then you dip in this, and then it's all gone because you still have no flow coming through. Democrats don't understand that. They never have. It's always been a money grows on trees type thing with them.
I'll just add to that. The Democrats are lying about that, and I think they know that. Some of the ones who are out saying it are actually attorneys. They can read the black letter law themselves. They even filed a lawsuit, you saw, to try to do it. Why? Because they wanted a talking point. They know that's a frivolous piece of litigation. They know they're going to lose, but they also know it'll take many weeks or months to have that ultimately determined by a court because of the way the justice system works. So they're using it as a talking point to try to claim. I believe they know for a fact that what they filed in the court is false. Yeah, but, you know, they're lawmakers. They're supposed to know how the law works. And so the whole thing is just shameful. And they're using the people as pawns in this game. That underlying fund that the secretary just addressed was unfunded by the Democrats themselves when they voted against the CR.
So you understand what he's saying? They lit the fire. They're the ones who underfunded it to begin with. They lit the fire. They have no way of putting the fire out. And so they're asking someone else to come in and take care of this mess that we created and pretend like it's a Republican issue. It completely boggles the mind how people aren't screaming at them.
CR would have kept all this funded, and they chose not to do it. Not once, not twice. 13 times in the Senate, once in the House, 14 overall.
So you only hear people on the right saying that they haven't done something 14 times in a row. The media won't talk about it. So the people who want their SNAP and food stamps don't care. All they care about is get me my money. You've seen the videos, which puts President Trump in a very precarious situation. And it's a situation based upon messaging. If he tells this judge to go pound sand, the media is going to immediately say that President Trump is ignoring a court order for politics. That's what he wants to do. He is ignoring this when he's got the money, he could be feeding people. The judge said you got to do it, and President Trump is saying no. And so I think the Democrats want him to go Andrew Jackson. I think they want him to go there. There's too many things happening right now. They're pushing and pushing and pushing. So what is President Trump supposed to do? Well, at 6:10 p.m., he posted this, and it may not make some of you guys happy. It says, our government lawyers do not think we have the legal authority to pay SNAP with certain monies we have available, which she just talked about. And now 2 courts, not just one, but 2 courts have issued conflicting opinions on what we can and can't do. I don't want Americans to go hungry just because the radical Democrats refuse to do the right thing and reopen the government. Therefore, and this is really important to understand. Therefore, I have instructed our lawyers. Notice it doesn't say USDA administrators. Notice it doesn't say Brooke Rollins from agriculture. That's very important. Because the media is going to say Trump capitulated and he's given the Democrats everything they want. That's what the media is going to say. But you have to read his words. I have instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. What you're looking right there is a bear trap. He's putting it back on the court. So you think we can use this money, huh? Yeah. Well, I'm not really sure. The law says, like Mike Johnson, it's black letter law. The law says this. I'm asking you to clarify how we can break the law. I'd love for you to give me a get out of jail pass here because I'm the president and I can't just openly violate laws that are on the books. See, I think the court tried to trick him. I think the court tried to say, I'm going to tell you to break the law, Now let's see if President Trump breaks the law. There's no doubt that there's a law. Nobody can argue that there's a law. The courts are saying, ignore it for now. Just give out the money. And I think that they were setting a trap for President Trump, because then they would impeach him because they said he broke the law. And President Trump, or whoever wrote this or whoever advised him, I think is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because he's not saying he's doing anything. I've instructed our lawyers to ask the court how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. So those of you who are on SNAP, it ain't coming anytime soon. When I say soon, 24, 48 hours, because now come this tonight, or maybe even on Monday, one of the Department of Justice attorneys is going to go in and say, this is a law. Here's the actual law, Your Honor. This is the statute. You're asking President Trump to violate this. Can you specifically clarify how exactly you want this to happen? Tell us. We're all ears. We'd love for you to tell us how to break the law. Checkmate. You won't hear this on the news. They'll say, President Trump is capitulating. I'm like, you better read what he wrote. He didn't say Brooke Rollins. I didn't authorize Scott Besson. I didn't authorize Jameson. Because I've talked to the lawyers, and they're going to come back to you and say, tell me how you want me to do this. And now you're going to see these judges, I think, back off. I think they have to back off. I think they're going to put themselves in impeachment territory. Because now, what do you say to that? Most people aren't going to pay attention to this. I want, hey, tell me how to do it. I'd love to do it. We don't know. You want to call me incompetent? Whatever. Tell me how I break this law. And now the judge who says, and the judge did the same thing. So you've got to see it from both sides. The judge didn't issue the TRO. The judge said, come back on Monday and tell me how you're going to distribute this money. So the judge was, I can't tell them to do it. If I tell them to do it, I'm breaking the law. So what I'm going to do is tell them to come back with a plan so that they break the law. And Trump just threw it right back at him. Hey, tell me how I break the law. That's what's going on. And nobody's going to tell you that. You can read it right there. It is already delayed enough due to the Democrats keeping the government closed through the monthly payment date. And even if we get immediate guidance, it will unfortunately be delayed while states get the money out. So he's letting everybody know, even if everything aligned, the stars all come together, it's still going to be delayed. You can't make somebody work faster. What's the judge going to say? Break the law by Tuesday. Sorry, doesn't work that way. If we are given the appropriate legal direction by the court, if anyone not understanding this, it's pretty clear he's putting the onus back on the court. He's telling the court, you're going to have to give us a roadmap here, because I'm looking at a cliff on this side and a waterfall on this side, and I don't know how we're going to do this with blindfolded. So you're going to have to give us the legal direction. So it's back on her. And let's finish here. If you give that to me, if you give me, and you read exactly if we are given the appropriate legal direction by the court, not the media, not the Democrats, you're now going to have to tell me exactly how we do that. It will then be my honor to provide the funding. Just like I did with military and law enforcement pay. The Democrats should quit this charade where they hurt people for their own political reasons and immediately reopen the government. If you use SNAP benefits, call the Senate Democrats and tell them to reopen the government now. Here's Crying Chuck Schumer's office number. Bada bing, bada boom. You're not going to hear that. You're probably going to hear people in the media saying the judge said you got to do it. You got to give him the money. But they didn't read what the judge actually said.